The next Trump-Biden debates 2020.
Hello and welcome to the Mark and Pete Show. For those who tuned in to the first 2020 US presidential debate will probably think it was a debacle. Yes, we saw Donald Trump face off with Joe Biden. It was considered a complete TV mess. For over 90 minutes, the candidates shouted, bickered, and continually argued, and in fact ignored the topics on hand. And it was a serious issue for the moderator, Chris Wallace. Many people thought he completely lost control. Well, what does this mean for the US public? Many are exasperated and felt that actually this was not good for the United States. So, what does it mean for the next stage? Is it now more a case of just simply readdressing the whole thing, starting again, and trying to find another way of having a serious debate? Perhaps one should take a step back, folks. And here's a little bit of advice to Donald Trump and to Joe Biden. It's all about talking tactics. A good debate is like a game of chess, where the tactics of talks always aim to impress. So to be king or queen of conversational success, show you have the knowledge and your opponents have less. Now, Clergyman Pete, the art of debate is something to master. I ask you, if you were going into the next US presidential debate, what would your approach be trying to tackle either Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Well, Business and Mark, that's an interesting question because there is an art to debating. But one of the main points, the main thing that you need to decide in advance going into a debate. So, in answer to your question, I need to decide what is the main thing that I'm trying to want to do. Is the most important thing. You need to have an aim. What do you want to achieve in this debate? Is it to answer all your opponent's objections to the points you put forward? Is it simply to get across your message to people at home, people in the audience, and not really engaging so much with your opponents, simply putting forward better arguments? What is it you're trying to achieve? Now, what I would be trying to achieve would be to try and connect with my base, with my supporters. So whether I were Trump or Biden, I believe that in this election, the key is turnout. If you can get a few more million people to turn out for you, you've won. So it's not a question really of persuading those wavering voters in the middle. It's about getting a massive turnout from people who already like you. So if I were Biden, I would want to be. I want to do pretty much what he did. I thought what he did was good, not really engaging with Trump too much, but the occasional insult. But what I would do is simply get across my lines better. Bit of practice in getting the message across. He came across as a bit dithery and weak. The voice sounded weak, so I don't know what can be done, but that's what I don't know if it's simply something to do with age, but if it can be sorted. It needs an air of confidence and calm. And for Trump, I would do the opposite of what he's doing. If I were in the Trump position, what I'd be trying to do is look across less at Biden and address the camera, address his followers. Now, I think he did in the first debate. He did achieve what he wanted to, I think, which was to get across to his followers that he was the same person with Biden in person as he was in the big rallies, and that he was sticking it to him. And Biden, I think, was showing that he was standing up to the bully. I think they did it. They both achieved what they wanted to. But in the second debate, I think you've got to get across your message to the people. Biden was trying to do that by looking at the camera, but he came across as weak and ineffectual. So for him, if I were in Biden's position, I'd be practicing on that delivery. In Trump's position, I'd be, again, practicing on the delivery, turning away from Biden and putting the full force of my personality towards the American people, especially his base.
Yes.
That's what I'll be
Well,
doing.
there's interesting thoughts here. So many people consider the game plan. This is a three-stage game plan because there are 3 points of debate. Now, we have to
Three
also,
debates.
folks, as we have all seen in the news, breaking news, because, of course, Donald Trump has contracted COVID 19. And whilst he's getting the best medical health, we're assuming that, of course, obviously he's going to continue and go into the next debate. Now, in terms of the tactics, many people before the first one thought that when it came to Biden's strategy, he shouldn't get embroiled in basically the brawl, the messiness, the back down to insults, because it was always going to play well for Donald Trump. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is an unusual character. And then what's interesting that when people have actually sort of reviewed this particular debate, many people, not just in the media but in society and even international commentators, have thought the whole thing didn't really do the United States any good, and they were rather embarrassed by the whole affair. It really got down to a rather fundamental and crude level in many cases, too many insults, and we didn't really come away with any substance. But many people will say that was Donald Trump's game plan, really, to just muddy the water, basically stop Biden from coming out with any of his policies. But here's the thing. The interesting thing is that many people ultimately criticize the moderator, Chris Wallace. And he was often criticized because he lost the moment. He lost the candidates. Now, was that simply because he was, no matter what you did, whoever you had in there, it was always going to be difficult? And you could argue that's true. Maybe, he was just an unfortunate man in the middle.
He had a bad day.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. But he did have a bad day, but also that he could not have done anything. But here's the thing. So many people have, interestingly and amusingly, have thought, well, actually, it's a little bit in anticipation of this rather sort of unfortunate childlike spat. They sort of interviewed some school teachers who are quite used to dealing with recalcitrant children and how to basically pacify them.
Yeah.
And so there have been
Yes.
some amusing anecdotes and demonstrations of how to deal with children. And in many ways, Biden and particularly Trump were very childlike in their approach, which was something that perhaps the next moderator could consider. But let's ask the question then, what do we ultimately want to see from a second and even third debate? So here we go. So there's two things here. There's the format, but we'll talk about that. What really matters is, what do we want to learn from the candidates? So Clergyman Pete, what do you want to hear purely from Biden? If he were president, what would you want to know? And similarly, we'll then come on to Donald Trump. If he continued to be president, what would you want to know?
Yeah, well, for Biden, what I really want to hear from him is his interpretation of the policies that are put forward as being his campaign platform. They're on his website, they've been articulated by other people, but for the man himself, I haven't heard him really articulating them. Indeed, what he said in the first debate on many of these points was the opposite of what he'd been saying on the campaign trail. So I want to have him articulate the actual basis of what he stands for. What is the alternative you're offering to Donald Trump? What we tend to get from him, what I'm hearing from him, is that Donald Trump is evil, don't vote for him, therefore vote for me, which is not really enough. I need to know what is he putting forward.
Correct.
And if it is as other people in the party think that he's agreed to sign up to the Green New Deal, which was put forward by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others in the Democrat Party as a solution to things like climate change, etc. And on his website, he says it supports it. In the debate, he said he didn't. And there's various things that are difficult there. What do you stand for, Biden? If he could get that across, an exciting vision for the future that offers a real alternative, then I think he would get the Democrats really excited to be behind him, as opposed to now It's a sort of lackluster support, it seems, and that's what the polls suggest as well.
Yes. Well, before we come on to Trump, I'll give you my view. I completely agree with that. I think that one of the things that the Democrats have spent an awful lot of time on is just simply saying Donald Trump's not a nice man. And I completely agree with you. And they've spent so much time on the personality of the politician rather than focusing on the issues of policy and substance. And I think that if Biden, given the chance in stage 2 and stage 3, if he could focus on that and make clear where he would perhaps address some of what he perceives are the issues, but bring to light what the next 4 years would look like in terms of his reign. And I don't see that coming through in anything that he has done to date.
I agree.
So I do agree, and nobody's going to dispute the man on the other podium perhaps has some major issues. But what I'm not seeing is I cannot think of anything other than the man himself, Donald Trump, not being a nice person, where I would think, what about the economics? What about foreign policy? What about the addressing the issue of COVID-19? Now he has sort of touched upon that, but he's really sort of blamed more the man Donald Trump, for what he perceives as being some of the issues with COVID-19. Now we know there are issues, but what are you going to do? But let's look at Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump, again, just purely with the lens here, what would you want from him? And without all the shouting and the criticisms and the strange language, just purely on policy, what would you want him to reassure you with?
Well, from his point of view in trying to win, so this is not something I wouldn't necessarily need to hear. It's something that I think he should do, is clearly unequivocally list off the achievements that he has managed to reach in his 3.5 years so far. He has more than I think any president that I've noticed managed to keep his campaign promises in an almost fetishistic, ceaseless focus. He has managed to achieve the aims that he set forth in his original campaign in 2016. Building the wall, getting Mexico to pay for it. They're sending the soldiers to guard it. There's tariffs, etc., and various other achievements that he's made, including the foreign policy, which has been very successful. I think they should be lifting up. And then he can point towards something that I saw him doing and it needs to be worked out, because I thought this was a brilliant way of putting it. I'd like to hear more from him. He was asked in one of these sort of town hall type discussions, Donald Trump was asked, how can you say make America great again? He was asked by someone who was African American, and he was saying, well, for the black community, America's never been great. How can you say make America great again? And Donald Trump was answered earlier this year, America was great until COVID-19 hit. So it was a brilliant answer, because he was saying he could show his achievement of bringing jobs into inner city areas and on black entrepreneurs to be able to launch new businesses, bringing all that back through his policies. So vote for me. I'm going to make it great again, not looking to the past, but looking to the earlier part of when he was working. I thought that was brilliant. If he were to hammer that home and go into how he was doing it, I think that would be it would be eye-opening for people. And if he were to do it in a positive way and show that he cares for all these different sectors in society that he's accused of not caring about, I think that'd be so much more effective for his base and wider than simply interrupting Joe Biden all the time.
Yes. Well, indeed, and what we're really saying is it's about focusing on your substances, your policies, and your strategy.
Yes.
And this is a little bit like I alluded to right at the beginning, because here I'm going to sort of follow on, it is like a game of chess because essentially you're trying to pitch against substance and policy and strategy and how you position yourself to essentially showcase what you have done in a positive light and diminish the strategy of the other. Now, the part of the strategy and the game plan, I think, the chess part, comes back to the running mates as well.
Yes,
so we've been
sure.
talking about Biden and Trump. Let's talk about another critical side, because I think we're going to get a different style of debate with the Vice President Mike Pence and the Californian Senator Kamala Harris. Now, they're going to come off in a debate on the 7th of October. Now, this is expected to be a less raucous affair. It's going to be some that's going to be between two people who will have the opportunity to focus on policy. So let's look at it from that point of view. Is it that we're going to see something different here, do you think? And will we finally get to really what each of the parties are really about? I just want to cover that side because we can't ignore it.
Well, yeah, I do think that. In talking earlier about what I thought, what we both thought that Trump and Biden should do, actually, there are people who are better suited to get it across. That is Pence and Harris, because they don't have the difficulties that the other two have. They're both rather inarticulate, strangely, for politicians, Trump and Biden. Biden, because he's lost some of his fluency. People say because it's Alzheimer's, or whatever. I don't know what the cause is, but he's certainly lost some of his mental acuity, and his ability to get ideas across has really suffered. And for Trump, he just seems to have always been like that. He just throws a word salad at you, and you have to try and pick.
He's quite belligerent as well.
Yes. He's forceful, and there's lots of words knocking you back, but you're not always sure what he's said.
No,
and it's not always. Quite often, isn't a logical development of an argument, so you may not follow what he's saying. Mike Pence is very good at that, and I don't think, although I don't think he would have been able to become president. Of course, he wasn't going to become president. He was a governor at the time of the 2016 election, up until the time when he put in his lot with Trump. But I think that Pence putting across Trump's vision would be very, very useful. And Harris, I wish I could say that she was as good and that we'd hear from her clearly. I don't think we will, but I think the reason I think that she will give a better idea is that I think she will give a good account of what the Democrat Party is actually going to do. Whereas Biden appears to be a bit confused because, as I was saying earlier, he seems to be saying one thing, whereas his party and his website is saying another. So, the Pence-Harris debate may not work well as a debate, but it might be a much better articulation of where the two different camps stand.
Well, I agree, and to this point, again coming back to substance,
yes,
and that is that should it actually, it's not going to happen this time round, but should it actually have been role reversal, that it should be Pence and Harris for president? I mean, essentially, really, isn't that really, in terms of caliber and standing, and what we're really looking for is those individuals who can articulate strategy.
I think articulation is one thing, but you also need a sense of charisma, and you need to, because it's about leadership as well. Yeah. I think, personally, I'm not a big fan of Trump, although I usually say it on the show as a joke. I think he's done a good job, but I'm not a big fan of his. But if you have Trump and Pence together, I think they work well because they're opposites. Harris and Biden, I don't think the same, because I just think that Harris is, I can't really put it politely. I just think she's terrible. I think that's as polite as I, but I just don't think that she has the ability to articulate well enough. I mean, she'll say better than Biden because she actually believes this stuff about the Green New Deal and all this sort of thing. That's the Democrat policy. but she has shown herself to be terrible at putting it across. She didn't do very well in the primaries, and it ended up not getting through because people didn't want her to represent the Democrat Party. She did very badly. She got she wasn't supported by many people at all. Why Biden chose her, I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me unless it was, like a diversity hire, like he was looking for someone from a particular ethnic background, and she could claim to be a POC.
Well, look, so that's one point. So let's come back to the lead candidates, and that is about the format. Many people criticize the original format because it just gave Donald Trump too many opportunities to just interrupt and play that game. So in terms of bringing
and vice versa, I think. I mean,
and vice versa,
Biden also interrupted.
Yeah. So let's talk about how it should possibly now unfold. So here's one option. So one option is to just simply have the same again, and let's just sit back and watch the pantomime unfold again.
Yeah,
apart from
it would be funny.
It would be funny, but the only thing that's missing is probably a wrestling match. But who knows? It could happen. Yes. But that probably won't happen. What will probably happen is some tweak to the format. So some people have suggested that there might be a mute button on the microphone. Some people have suggested, and this is where we were possibly going to see whether it happens, in a debate, we know that we want to see both candidates have a conversation. I think with the individuals that we've got, and let's be realistic, we would only end up defaulting back to the first debate. So should it be now that each candidate should be on one podium with the moderator and invited audience virtually, of course, because of COVID-19, they can't be in the same particular studio, but certainly live streamed audience asking questions of the candidate, where you can totally focus then on the actual subject matter, and unless they end up interrupting themselves, which in Trump's case could happen.
Yes. No,
what do you think about that?
Well, yes. No, we had a brief discussion off air about this, and that does seem to be the right format. There was a similar thing done in the 2016 election where you had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump interviewed separately. What I think would be, by the same interviewer, but what I think would work is that you could do that and then have audience participation, and then you could have with neither of the candidates there and a sort of a feedback session at the end. I think this would be very informative. There wouldn't be the opportunity for the argy-bargy, and you'd then get a big feel not just for the personality or the policies that have been articulated, but how people have responded to them. Of course, it would be important to select the audience, whether they're virtual or not, so there's a good mixture of supporters for the two candidates, as in half each, well, maybe not half each. I said that, but maybe you should have some people who are floating voters, having a few like that. Like you do in these sort of focus groups that they have, but have a larger sample, have a reasonably large audience, and have a feedback session. Then you get a really good reaction to both their personalities and the policy proposals. That could be the next debate. The third debate, if we getting that far, I think I personally think, and I think that you may disagree with this, Mark, that it would be good to have another head-to-head and let them fight it out. No actual wrestling, but I mean, let them have a proper conversation with each other.
Well, I'm going to come on to the third one in a minute. I just want to close out. So we'll see what happens. But clearly we want something different. I mean,
yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Amusing as it might be as a TV spectacle to have them arguing and maybe coming out with some new insults to sort of spill out on social media. But that's not really what we want. And so we're clearly looking for something different. But one of the things I wanted to ask at this point in time, which is about the influence of a TV debate. Now, many people, and this is a long, long time ago, and obviously media was changing, but I'm going to debate, or at least with you, highlight the the debate that was brought up in 1960 between Kennedy
Yeah.
and Nixon. Now, of course, Kennedy was believed to have won the debate, partly because he fitted the presentation style, he fitted the camera very well, whereas unfortunately Nixon was sweaty, his bad makeup, and he just didn't come across very well. Now, would that have really influenced the voter? Some people said yes.
Yes.
As we looked at other debates over time, we can talk about other candidates who have basically debated off in other ways over the decades. But I just want to come back to this point. Do you think that these debates actually change people's minds?
I think that they have done. Just talking back to looking back rather at that 1960 debate, it was also broadcast on radio, and
Yes.
there was an interesting analysis of that. In that, yes, people thought that Kennedy had won on TV, but on radio they thought Nixon had won. So I think
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so you're right in saying that it was the appearance that was important, and Nixon was he was a good debater.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
both
Yeah.
Kennedy and Nixon, if we're honest, streets ahead of the candidates that we have now. But look, but putting that aside, I don't think that this time around they're going to have that much effect. Apart from one thing, and this is the most important thing, and that is enthusiasm. You see, many people still get their information from TV, and that because of that, they're not going to see much about what the candidate that they prefer, or the other side, the candidate that they don't prefer. They're not going to see much about it. They either watch Fox News and hear a lot about Trump. Now, Fox News, however, is not really in the Trump camp. It's just more right wing than the rest of the media, and all the rest of the media, it seems, totally biased, totally in the camp for Biden. So the only way to get a proper comparison and get a bit of enthusiasm, rather than just stroking your ego, such as oh yes, the person who I've chosen is right after all, which may result in you not bothering to vote because you know it's so biased for Biden. If he wants to get a good turnout, he needs to have the debates, I think, because
Yeah,
and vice versa. Trump really needs to have enthusiasm behind him. So I think that therefore that the debates are part of that, but they're not so important that the actual content of the debate is going to turn the election. I don't think so.
Well, I think that what is important, and we saw this in the last election when we had Clinton against Trump, but Trump mastered the social media platform. So you mentioned TV. You did sort of allude to radio of the past, and radio still has an influence today. But certainly social media is very, very important, and Trump seems to have commanded that. I don't necessarily mean in terms of I agree with what he's saying and the words that he used, but he's very effective with it.
Yes, this can be summarized by a saying that's going around at the moment, which is this: the Democrats cannot meme. And as you know, a meme has come to mean just an amusing short video or picture usually with some words on it, which encapsulate a sort of a satirical idea. And when that's done by supporters of Donald Trump, they do it in an amusing manner. When people do it in favour of Biden, they appear to not get it and not get the humour, so it doesn't get shared around as much. So yes, I think it's a cultural phenomenon. It's not just Trump himself. It's Trump's fans seem to have grasped the social media angle much better. And I'm not talking about the Russian bots. I'm talking about real, genuine people. So it's interesting. It will be interesting to see who wins, because Biden has something very powerful in his favour, and that is the heads of the major social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, are all on his side. Yep. So do they manage to quench the power of these meme artists, of these people who are effectively proselytizing for Trump on social media? Will they get squashed enough? Well, it'll be an interesting battle.
Well, it will. And just to close out on the third debate, this is what I would love to see. I'm probably not going to get it, and so,
Yes,
but
what
I
would
would
you
love
like
to
to
see
see?
it.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see an Oxford-style debate. So the Oxford Debating Society, folks, where it really is, if you like, the bastion of debate, and the format where it tends to be highbrow and intellectual, and you can have a very considered, orchestrated, clever set of arguments around a given subject. Now, obviously, applying that in this particular case is probably asking an enormous amount of of individuals that probably could never raise their game. But what I do think when it comes to the final debate, I would rather it not be a debate. So I can see the point of debate on the second one, but I would rather it be more of a probing interview. So in many people will say, it's a little bit like, and this is what I'm not going to get the Oxford-style debate because I just don't believe either candidate can do it. But what I would like to see is something like a hard talk. So for those international listeners who watch business programs, the BBC have a program which is very hard-hitting and cutting. There's nothing, no holds barred, very, very targeted questioning, and that would be quite revealing of each candidate. Now, if we were to do that, I think we would get to the source of the truth, folks.
Well, I'm not sure, you see, Mark, whether that's what the candidates intend.
But do
Sadly,
we really want the truth?
Are
we happy with this pantomime?
Yes, can we handle the truth? As I was saying, just very briefly, my idea for the final debate was to have them just have a conversation and have at it, because I just think it will reveal to everyone exactly what these people are like. It may not be edifying, but it may be truthful in a character sense. But I don't think I'm going to get my wish either. So.
Yes. Well,
what do you
think?
At
this point that I mute Clergyman Pete's mic and say, listeners, it's your turn. We want you to have a say at last. Why not debate and actually put it online? Go on to markandpete.com and actually tell us your thoughts. Who do you think won the first round? Who do you think should be moderating on the second one? And what do you think the format should be? And what would you be looking for in the final debate? Well, let's see what happens. So let's wish Mr. Trump all the best in his attempts to recover from COVID-19. We hope. And let's hope that we finally actually get some substance from these debates. Well, join us next time for Topical Topics with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.